Hi guys, how are you today? Today is Wednesday, March 18th, and this video is going to be a continuation of yesterday's video because I know I got text that I missed number 15. So I'm going to go over this one as well as number 20, 21, 22, and I'm talking about the same page 410, same objective, which is simplifying trig expressions. So let's start with number 15. The given is cosine minus cosine cubed, and we're supposed to simplify that. I rewrote it nicely in here. So we start with cosine minus cosine cubed. This is similar to an example we did together before. We broke the cube to a square and a 1. And if you guys remember, we said the input does not change. So it's x, but the cosine is squared and the cosine is power of 1, which makes it cosine cubed. Now, why did we do that? So we can get something called common factor. And in this case, the common factor is the cosine. You guys see it here. You see it here again. So we're going to factor by cosine, and that's what we did here. You took cosine as a common factor, parentheses, what's left from this is 1, because if you multiply them again, you get cosine. And what's left from that term is cosine squared. So 1 minus cosine squared. We get up to here and we ask ourselves, oh, we saw this before, 1 minus cosine squared. And today I put on the other screen what we have done so far from the identity sheet. That way we can refer to it. 1 minus cosine squared is sine squared. So according to identity 10, 1 minus cosine squared is sine squared. So the simplified form will be cosine multiplied by sine squared. And that was number 15. So we used right here, if I want to put next to it, identity number 10. Okay. And I highly suggest you guys do something called personalized identity sheet. I'm going to talk about it in my next video, and I'm going to show you a sample where you actually rewrite all these identities and number them. So for example, this shows you sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1. But it doesn't show you the other ones that come from the original. So I tried here to branch it out into what could this give me if I subtract sine squared, and what could this give me if I subtract cosine squared. And those are the two results. Those three are three different formats of the same identity. So this was number 15. Let's go back to number 20. This is number 20. Number 20 is pretty simple. Cotan is 1 over tan. And since it's a cotan of negative x, this would stay as negative x. I don't need to get or use any of the even odd ones because right away I see tan of negative x up here. And we said yesterday, since it's a multiplication, we can cross these off and this whole expression would equal 1. So I simplified tan of negative x across, and I'm left with 1. Number 21, sine squared of negative x plus cosine squared of negative x. Regardless of what the angle is, sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1, as long as this is the same angle for both. So again, the reason why this equals 1, I disregard what's inside as long as it's the same. Sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1. So I don't even need to go in details into the even odd identities. Last one. I also rewrote it nicely because I figured it might be a little bit confusing the way I wrote it on the original one. Secant squared of negative x minus tan squared of x. So I rewrote it right here. And secant square of negative x, again, this is number 22. We said secant and cosine are even, everything else is odd. And even means, even if you have input that is opposite, it's the same output. So secant squared of negative x is the same as secant squared of x. So I rewrote that using the odd even identities. And let me go back right here to be more specific. I can give you, actually it doesn't show right here, but I was gonna give you the number of the identity. Maybe next time I'll have the even bigger one, the whole identity sheet. But we can write right here that we used even odd identity. And you guys can figure out which number is that. So it equals secant square of x minus tan square. I just copied this down. Now, secant squared, since I see a tan squared right here, again, we said the challenge with those type of questions, I can't tell you do this first, do this second. You gotta practice and practice so you can know what to do next. So the reason why I know I need to rewrite this in a different way next is because I see a tan squared right here. So I remember from the list of identities that secant squared equals 1 plus tan squared, and that's identity 12. So I rewrite secant squared as 1 plus tan squared. I recopy minus tan squared. Those cancel out, and I'm left with 1. And again, this was number 15, 20, and 21. And at the end, 22. Okay, please don't forget, you can always send your questions via Remind or leave a comment. Thank you, and I hope this will be helpful.